Right, finally it's recording after several attempts where it said the SD card was locked. Who knows? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you the vintage brand Flying V thing, really. Yeah, pretty good looking big chunk of rock and roll goodness. Hornby Skewes, or JHS, John Hornby Skewes product, in conjunction with Trevor Wilkinson, so it's got Wilkinson hardware all over it. So we have good rock and roll guitar with what's already got a fairly nice action, but it has some choking going on over the top, so not in the best possible playing order. So Hugh has asked me to basically give this a fret leveling followed by a setup, and we'll get it back to kind of playing the action that it was before. In fact, it's fairly good off the nut here, which makes a change. So it shouldn't be too radically different, but we will level these frets to make sure this is as good as it can be. Now it's obviously a set neck, so we're going to have to do all in one piece. Give it a clean up as we go, but it's got your standard Wilkinson vintage style tune. This has got a kind of stick-on badge here, which is quite nice. Sorry, a screw-on badge, which is quite nice. It's sort of relief thing sticking out. Gold hardware throughout. It looks like an aftermarket nut because there's a gap here. Nut looks good, so we'll keep that. No cracks or anything in the neck joint. Gold chromed hardware, through body string fixing with these wings of this thing sticking up a little bit, which are a bit odd. Everything in working order, so not a complex undertaking, this one. Sorry, in your face, man. Oh, I've got an idea. It's a bit untidy in here still, so that's got to go in the bin. Broken screw. Yeah, I've got this little shelf here which could work as a standalone camera shelf. Or maybe it couldn't. It's a bit iffy. No matter how far we... what we do with it, really. It gives just a different angle, I suppose, but it doesn't give us a lot of room for movement and the balance of it. We could try it. We'll try it there. It's a different perspective. We can get plugged in as well. So tonight I'm going to take this down, take its bits off, and I'm going to get the neck masked off and possibly do the neck along with this neck that I've just refretted from this Squire Strat. I'm not 100% thrilled with this refretting. The slots seemed a bit big, a bit loose, and as always I've kind of ground some of the frets down because that block is really hard to use without skipping across. But anyway, it's okay because I'll take it off with the fret leveling. So we'll mask off these two necks together. Yeah, as you can see, it's a pretty good looking thing. Just going to make a note, and thankfully I've got a whiteboard now. Just going to make a quick note of the action. At the 22nd fret we've got about 1.6, action 1.6, and we don't need to worry about the playing the nut action. So V equals 1.6 millimetre at the 22nd. Just leave that there so I know when I come back to it. So we're going to lose these strings in the bargain. We'll need to order in some more. Interesting day today. A couple of different people. I got to meet Jack from Edinburgh, I think. He came over with Eva, and he bought the Squire standard Telecaster. And a bit later on, Hugh came over with this guitar plus two really interesting ones. A 335 copy, and the name I've forgotten again, but it's a really, really rare one. And it's a beautiful old thing, and it's really battle worn. So it's going to be a really careful, well, they're all careful, but it's going to be really careful because it's a loved, very, very much loved old friend, this particular guitar, that particular guitar. And along with that is an acoustic, Japanese acoustic, which is a very pretty guitar, which really needs some work done. The fingerboard is kind of worn out. So I've just poked a big hole in my finger, courtesy of these strings. Okay, just ping off and cut with impunity. So I'm just going to cut these bits off here. I mean, they're not bad condition, these strings, but I'm never going to put them back on to play with, because it's good to get a new set once you have the work done, part of the whole thing. And the through body business, what I've read, is costs a little bit in terms of sustain. It's not the most, well, anything behind the bridge costs, robs you of a bit of sustain, so it's up to you if you go that way. Right, I'm going to take off the truss rod cover. I wonder why. I think the through body stuff, I think it's really, from the outset, it's got to have been mainly cosmetic. Don't think anyone ever argued a particular reason why you did that or they did that. And on top of that, it adds a degree of technical difficulty. You've got to drill through in a way that gets your holes to come out at exactly the same place, which on homemade guitars, sometimes the custom ones, you can see that they miss the mark. And they look good on one side, but the exit holes are all over the place. It's quite difficult to control unless you've got something that will basically, a way of guiding your drill very, very precisely. So I guess the one plus thing is that with through body, you get rid of the stop piece. You don't need that. This all works. There's no need to take any of this apart. So really, I'm just going to give it a quick clean, and then most of what's going to happen is getting the neck sorted. It's not like buying or getting a guitar in. I need to take apart and see what's what. This one is pretty new, according to Hugh, and so we can tell it plays. We've played it earlier on. Let it go. So it really is just about making sure it's clean when we put it all back together again, and just cleaning up any obvious goo that's built up. Now that's something worth making sure we've got this done up. I don't have technically the right tool for this, but there are ways of achieving it. Interesting. Takes a while to polish up. Anyway. I'll give a quick swipe over with naphtha. Remove any dirt. So this is a standard thing to do, really. Personally, I'm not a great fan of the V shape. I don't know why. I suppose it's because it hasn't got the sort of soft shapes of the Stratocaster or something like that. I'm a bit of a sucker for that shape, I think. So the V is a bit sort of human and actually very American in my mind anyway. I'm sure that you could quite easily say the Strat is as well, but okay, so basically that at the moment. Then I'm going to have two guitars on the go for masking up. So let's get some new blades ready for cutting some more paper. The difficult thing is disposing of old ones, apart from sticking them into my flesh, which is one way of doing it, whilst on trains. So if you've watched many of my videos before, all of this stuff will be a little bit routine by now. Okay, I'm just going to send this. Okay, yeah. Come on, messenger. Yes, let me know. Okay, shut off. Airplane mode, right. Yeah, so if you've seen other videos, this is a bit humdrum. It's the process of masking off. Masking off these necks so that they are safe. Slightly different knives from the ones I've been using recently, but they'll do. Nicely oiled up. Okay, right, so I need my low tack masking tape, which I've got one more roll of, so better keep an eye on that. And I'm just going to be putting it on the neck, right up, running it right up to the frets. I'm using plenty of it so I can wrap it around the back. Yada yada yada. You've heard it all before probably. If you haven't, sorry if I sound jaded. Just came out from the house when I came out to find Morris out here waiting for me, but in the house his sister had tracked the mouse that was loose down to under the fridge, and I got down on the floor and I could see it and hear it under there eating bits of leftover cereal that teenagers regularly drop, and it rolls under there. So the poor little mouse is kind of on a death sentence because it's under the fridge, and the minute it shows itself it's dead meat. So it's trying to eke out a pitiful living below the stairs. I feel very sorry for it. Just park this up here for a minute. Do this one, and then I'm going to do some cutting. So a year or so into doing this, and one of the main questions I had when I started out was, if I did a lot of this, would I get bored of it? And quite strangely, I'm not sure I have yet. That may be partly because I keep putting new challenges in front of me. For example, the two guitars that Hugh brought over, they're both very old vintage guitars. That's a challenge in itself, but also they're both got bound fretboards. So I wonder if I can maybe I can use a different thing this time, since I've got two guitars to do at once. Yeah, they're both bound fingerboards, so it means I've got to do a different technique, or cut the frets differently, and that's quite interesting in itself, because I've got the tool for it, but I haven't done it, so I'm going to get an experience of doing that. So it's a bit like when I did the first refret. You know, you just have to say yes, you can, or when somebody says, well, would you do it? You say yes and learn and take it carefully and get on with it. Which is a great way to just kind of push yourself to do things. So this is sort of my mass production version. 2 guitars worth will be 8 strips of tape all at once, and get the ruler out to cut all of this. This is the problem with the low tack stuff. Sometimes it picks up and moves when you don't want it to. Like that. Right. So it's not bad, it's doable. 2 at a time. Just slows down the process a bit, that's all. So I'm going to do 4 of these at half cuts and then 4 at thirds. And that was the worst cut ever. That just, what the hell am I doing? That just went, first of all it went off into a spiral around the tape, and then it went onto the ruler itself and cut into the aluminium. Now it's doing it again. Blimey. Complete loss of dexterity. Yeah, so yes, I was concern was, would I get bored of doing this? And as I said, the good thing is I haven't so far, because of the variety. But even surprised to find that some of the things that I really like to do, like refretting, you could argue are fairly mindless tasks in some ways. I guess anything to do with repairing a guitar can be, compared to some people's work, can be quite mindless, but making something, fixing something, making it new again, or better than new, is a really rewarding thing, I find anyway. So that keeps me interested the whole time. Oh, this is a bit slow and dreary. I remember asking the Martin down at the cycle shop, where I get the cardboard for the guitars I send in the post, and I asked him about when he set up the bike shop, and did he worry when he did it that he would get bored setting up bikes day after day after day, week after week, and he said no, he never has, which I think is pretty cool. Right, so this is a bit boring for you, but you can see that I'm just making sure I've got enough cardboard masking tape for both of these necks. And that I can just get them both done together and pretty much get on with levelling together, since I'll be doing pretty much the same stage or same job on each one. The only difference between them being, one is bolt on and therefore it comes off, and the other one is a glued neck and doesn't. Ah, bugger. I was working with different tools or different equipment. Not used to using this big board, therefore it fell off the edge. Right, nearly there. Okay, so I'm just going to guess these halves. And there we have it, ready to go. So I'll start with the thicker gauge first, and just fire away, even though this one's a bit of a rubbish. I think it's totally rubbish. Let's give that one up as a bad job. Right, so you get the drift. I'm going to cut the video off now to save you the absolute boredom of seeing me mask up two different guitars. But I'll come back when it's time to do some fret leveling. Okay. Righty-ho, see you in a minute. Well, interesting one there. I've just done a check on this vintage by Wilkinson, this vintage Flying V thing, and it's got probably one of the most uneven sets of frets I've ever come across, and they're really extreme in some places as well, so no wonder it was choking the notes off up here. 95%. The only one that was checkable that didn't show up with uneven frets was this one. So anyway, I'm going to begin the process of levelling them. So what we do is we just draw a marker pen line down the top of each one, and this is for us to see where we've removed material with our file or our sanding. Now, the question here is, what method is the method to use? Given there's so much unevenness, and that means quite a bit of metal has to come off to make these things even, I would be tempted to begin with the crimson fret levelling file and end up with the beam up here, which will give us a sanded finish, which is sort of easier to go on and sand smooth afterwards. But it's not a good position to be in. Let's have a look. Unplug. Yeah, this thing here is a quicker file, and it will remove larger areas more quickly. I think really that's what we're going to need to do here. You do it with a sanding beam, but you know, the thing is, it just takes so much longer. You'll be there forever to get it done. Sorry, bash, wallop. So, you know, this will do me, and to do it I'm just going to start. I've made sure the necks on both the necks are straight, flat first before I do any of this, and now I'm going to just begin by running down the neck and starting on the edge and then moving slowly inwards. And the fact that I'm doing this in strips, so sorry about the tool noise, the fact that I'm doing this in strips means in a way I'm kind of following the radius as I go. It's not perfect, but it's enough. Now, at that point, I'm just going to stop and see what's happening. Well, okay, touching all of those frets there. The areas that look like they're really extremely high are quite flat already, so it's taken down quite a bit of material. And there's a couple of frets up here which are significantly high, but there's a few that are low. So I'm just going to go back the other way, make sure I get everything. I'm not exerting too much pressure, I'm just making sure that the fret file is getting a touch of everything it needs to. In order to ensure that everything's level. And if I brush this off now, there's a couple of frets up here right at the end that aren't touched very much, and the way I would now do is to get the fret rocker out and just make sure that the areas that showed up as uneven are now sorted, which they almost always are, doing it this way, particularly with that tool, because it does take off a lot in one go. But some of these uneven spots will be so extreme that it wouldn't surprise me that we'll come across ones that still show up as slightly still show a rock clicking, if you like, but we've got all of it, and that's good. So just right up to the top end, I've got some unevenness here, so I'm just going to have to do a little bit more on this part of the neck, because it's not getting to it yet. Yeah, still a tiny bit. Now, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to switch now to the levelling beam. I'm going to just use that as a single surface, and it lets me just work over what I've done with a finer grade, and it also allows us to do the final sort of tailoring of any remaining unevennesses. We can take them out. Having a quick look. And what I'm looking for is to see whether this 200 grit now, 220 grit, has taken away or replaced all of the major scratching from the original file. Okay, I'm just going to do a couple of quick checks just to make sure that everything is level. No point going onwards if it's not. Okay. Still a tiny bit of unevenness up at this end. Quite remarkable. So we can either I'm being careful because you can pay attention to it with this sanding beam here. Hope that we get to take it down. In a sense, it should also be working on that because it's a single flat beam. Got to be also careful of the pickup down here. I don't want to crash into that. Do some of these checks up here. Still a little bit of unevenness. It's quite surprising how much is at this end. Yeah. To be honest, I'm going to have to do this bit with this tool here. I'm going to come this way. And hoping that this will have got the last, yeah it has, it's got rid of the last uneven things, and that means now I can just finish off, hopefully wear down the extreme scratches with this sanding beam now. You see, this is a quite significantly uneven fretboard. I mean, you can tell from the numbers, but in terms of the amount of the scale of the unevenness, it was quite extreme, which is the weakness of all of these guitars, I'm afraid. Even vintage, much as I like them, right, okay. That is that. Now I'm just going to prep it for the next bit, which is to go over it again with marker pen, because we're going to use the fret profiling tool next time. But first of all, before I do that, I'm going to do the square affinity neck as well. But like I say, the amount of metal we've had to take off to get these frets level is a bit unacceptable, really, for a guitar that in every other way is pretty high quality, you know. But it's not unusual. I've had a couple of other vintage guitars with as many uneven frets, but I've also had some with superbly level frets, which is quite the extremes. So really don't know what the cause is, why some do and some don't. I suspect the ones that do are the minority, and I suspect they'll have been levelled by somebody in the past outside of a factory or a shop. That's probably the only logical explanation for such a small percentage. Okay, so now this one, if I check the evenness, has some unevenness. It's actually not bad. I've been surprising myself with some of these, some of my own frettings. Bloody hell. Again, this one, we could do either one or two things. We could do a radius with this, because we know this is a 9.5 radius, and we've got a 9.5 radius block up here with sandpaper already in it. We'll just double check it to make sure that it is 9.5. Yeah, it is. I just went and bent it, but I always like to make sure. So you could do the levelling now with a radius block. Sorry, tool noise. I don't have a mute button, do I? I could left down on the recording volume. Hold on then. So this, he says, putting the level back up. This is interesting. I don't know if you can see now. This is leveling like a radius beam does, which is very accurate in a sense, because it's imposing a 9.5 radius onto these frets, which kind of should be 9.5, but they, by definition, they tend to stick up a little bit at the edges. So what I'm getting is, particularly down here, it's getting some wear on the edges and not quite so much in the middle, but it's not too far out. But that's what you have to sort of bear in mind when you use the radius block this way, is that imposition, sorry, is the imposition of the radius that this approach puts onto the neck. It forces it to be 9.5 no matter what it actually is. So I'm just showing you really as a different way of doing it. The point being here is once we've got down to the metal on all of these, then we can be fairly sure that we're levelled. So some of these look quite flat at the edges by comparison to the middle. So that's quite a lot of enforced shape going on here, which probably would have been less alarming if we'd done it with the crimson file. I mean, what you know is that this is a very strict 9.5 radius. That's what you're getting, whether you like it or not. Hello, you. The problem being is if you didn't put your frets in, hello. If you didn't put your frets in exactly correctly, or for example, if for some reason they were sticking up at the edges, then this is going to give you a very hard time with it, because it's going to wear away those sticking up edges pretty significantly. So what I've got now is probably levelled frets, but I've also got a couple of gouges on these, which I've noticed I've got a couple of times come off that edging tool, and it skips where the cutting tool skips from the side and goes down the across the fingerboard, and it's really annoying. I don't really want to have to take it off using the crimson file, but I may have to resort to it. Let's have a see. This is working with 220 grit paper, and if I can just get rid of those cracks, chips with 220, then it'll be better. The only downside, if the tool skips and you end up chipping the metal, which is done here, then you are left with a blemish which forces you to cut downwards to remove, and I'm going to have to use this, but it forces me to cut downwards into the fret to get rid of it, and you have to keep going until it's taken the blemish away, which is quite extreme since these are brand new frets. Just going down the edges. Right, a couple of little more bits. I'm going to just go back over with the radius block now, just to get rid of the crimson file marks, and hopefully just take the last of those chips out, and then from there we'll be into the next stage. The nature of the levelling beast, of course, is that you are working to the lowest common denominator all the time. and you know, say if you put a chip in something, then you're going to pay for it, which is what we are doing right now. We're paying for it here. We may just get it out with a little bit more work. I can see that's gone to more or less a tiny little bit left. Okay, so again, having taken loads of material off this one for other reasons, and that was because of a slip with the tool while I was cutting the edges flat, and I'm not totally happy with that wooden block I've got, because it's done that quite a few times, and I could imagine a design where it wouldn't do that, so I'm going to have to maybe look for another alternative. It wasn't very expensive, so it's not a lot of money lost, but can't afford it to skip up and go skittering across the frets and putting chips in them, because that forces us to take quite a bit off the life of the frets in order to sort it out, which is not what you want to do. Not such a problem with this guitar because they're brand new frets and it's a, you know, it's a square affinity. It's not the end of the world, but. Okay, so now the next part of the game, and these are, I would say these are medium frets, and the job now is to use this tool to gently, yeah, that'd be noisy, I'm sorry, gently let the diamond cut the flat spot back to a reshaped, rounded fret. Do it before too long. It will seem to take quite a long time on the bits where there's a big flat spot, because you've got to take a lot of material away. Each one's taking quite a while because of the severity of treatment we have to give it. And the aim of this job here is to cut away the flat spot until we end up with a nicely sort of rounded shaped fret again, which we're getting, and it's not too bad at all, but it is taking a bit longer because of the sheer amount we've had to take off this to fix those chips. And I have a similar problem in a sense with the Flying V, because the unevenness there on some of these frets has forced us to take a fair bit off too. So it's also going to take us a little time to round the frets back to the right profile. Yawn. You come across one or two where it hardly takes any time at all, things that have been by chance didn't take too much wearing down. Okay, so it's taking time. I'm just going to put that on the side for a minute to bring up the V and just have a quick go with that one. I'll take one of the spots that's really uneven and let's see. I know it's going to pick a bit that I know is flat because it's taken a lot of material. For example, that one. So at the end where it's flattest, it's going to take the time, the more time to work it into the right profile. And again, you kind of know you've got there because you've taken the black marker down to the smallest little line. So again, it's doable. It's going to take some time. So with that in mind, I'm going to save you the misery and allow myself to listen to something on the radio. So I'll see you when this bit's all done. Really, to just lighten up the action for playing the guitar. So, got one more stretching to do. Let's turn the bright lights out of the way for you. Put this on some solid ground. There we are. Yes, I'm just going to give it one more manual stretch. And then it will be a case of just checking it again, checking the relief, see if any more relief has bent into the neck. Now we've got it all sorted. And if not, then it's just a case of checking the intonation and doing a couple of small tweaks to that. I'm never a great fan of doing the intonation on tunematic bridges personally. Something I find that's fairly unresponsive about them, in my experience. It may just be me, it may just be a personal bias or prejudice, but I find them less responsive than the ones on a Stratocaster bridge, which I much prefer working on, which are easier to get to in all manner of ways. Anyway. So also, at this stage now, I might as well plug it in and get the amp up here ready to do the intonation, because I'll need to do that in the upright position. Me upright as well as the guitar. So I'll just get rid of my feeler gauges, which I'll put in here at the same place as I keep all the slot files. I did this before and then couldn't find the feeler gauge, and it took me quite a while to work out that I put it there, which seemed a really sensible thing to do at the time. Yuck. Right, I will need a phone with no signal or not sending microwaves left, right and centre, a lead, I will need a strap, it's not this strap, I don't need that strap because that's one that you screw in to a guitar. This strap. Sorry about that noise. Got some of these rubbery strap lock button things. I won't bother trying to put those on full scale yet. Well, maybe I have to. We haven't got anything. That's strange. That's not the easiest thing in the world. There's a kind of rubbery strap lock thing on here which isn't easy to take off, and it's not correctly in place, but it also makes it hard to put a strap on to do something like this temporarily. Anyway, it should stay on long enough. A bit low slung. Okay. Wow. Gain, volume, everything clean. Of course, it's got a lot of power. It's also, again, like a lot of guitars, there's a slightly sharp nut here that I might just gently ease off the corner on that. It's unnecessarily sharp, but Apart from that, it's not perfectly in tune. Good pull. Right. Okay, it's got really powerful pickups on it, if you ask me. Okay, we can play all notes, which is good. Right, so what we need for this will be a long-handled screwdriver. Possibly not that one. Or where's the other one? Here it is. Here we want a Phillipsy thing, and a small screwdriver head to get through to these things here, which are a right pain to get to. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hope that this is starting out in intonated. It can be the case if we're lucky. Let's just try the first note. Oh, unlucky. Maybe we'll get away with this. Wow, very close. B is a tiny bit sharp, which means the string is fractionally too short. So I'm going to, which way is it going to go? I don't even know. Looking at this, I can never remember. Turn it. It's going to pull it. So what am I doing? Screwing that in is going to pull it. Clockwise is going to pull it that way. We need to go anti-clockwise on here. but you can see, well you probably can't see, but this is really difficult to get to without basically without slacking off the string. So what did we say? Anti-clockwise. So I don't like tensioning or stressing the string this much, but with this is one reason why I don't like the tunematic bridge, and I certainly don't like the screws facing this way, because now if I go anti-clockwise, which I just about can do, I'm hoping that I get that extra little bit of lengthening, and now I'm going to tighten the string back up. It's a load of stress which I didn't want to put it under. What you'll find with this tunematic bridge, even though there's a bit of movement there, probably find it didn't make a blind bit of difference. Actually it did, luckily. Do the same to the G, and that's going to need to realistically slack off too, because there's no way I can get to this without scrunching the string. Maybe I can with this one. So anti-clockwise to make it go backwards a bit longer. It's not too bad, I got to that one alright. It'll raise the note, I think, so we've got to tune it again. That's good, that'll do me. Thankfully this is being a responsive bridge for once. If anything, a tiny bit flat, which means we need to go clockwise and bring it the bridge tiny bit, the saddle tiny bit closer. Actually, you might be interested to see that. It's you can see how tiny these amounts are. But if you look at that bottom three, the first three are closely together but staggered backwards like they should be. The second two, the next two on the second triplet of strings are in the same kind of spatial arrangement, but this one you can see the E is quite far back, and that's actually telling us from our intonation from our tuner there, it's telling us that that is too long a string, and you can see it's too long because it's out of kilter with the other two. It's not in the same sort of relative. What I'm also noticing here on this guitar is there's a patch of blemished, I don't know if that's the right word, patch of dulled lacquer on this, which I can probably clean up with a bit of micromesh paper. But anyway, so let's do this E, final E. Okay, so we know it's too long. In that case, when it's too long, we're going to do clockwise and drag the thingy towards us. Sometimes it wants to turn and sometimes it just resists it. Obviously this would be a lot easier in some ways with the tension off the strings, but you can't really tell it to intonate it if you take tension off the strings. Pretty good. I'll settle for that. Give me one last tug. And then tune it, and we're done. Pew. That's done. So there you have it. The vintage brand by John Hornby Skewes. Vintage brand Flying V. I'll just put the truss rod cover on in a second, but apart from that, and the fact that these are slightly sharp, everything else done. Action a little bit lighter than before, certainly a little bit lighter at this end. Frets all level, notes playing much cleaner all the way up and down. Nice powerful pickups, really good quality Wilkinson pickups, and easy to play, really nice to play now. So not a huge task, but a satisfying one nonetheless, because as you saw from the numbers, the quality of the frets, the evenness of the frets on here were just lousy, really truly poor. So this is put it back into a state much more I wouldn't say put it back into any state, it's made it precise, and it's a much cleaner notes, much better set of notes further up on the neck. So for me, that's that done. I'm just going to plonk it there, put the truss rod cover back on. There is a kind of sticky thing that these things come with, which is like a thing that it acts as a stop, so you can put it on your knee and it doesn't slide off, and it has to stick to the side of here, and it's basically come off and the glue's gone all crappy over a period of time, and I don't really know what kind of stuff has been put on here. It needs sticking on with some kind of double-sided tape or glue even, but what it's been a certain tape, but not really quite sure what's going to suit this, so I'll have a little look around, do a bit of research. But apart from that, that's it done. Okay, so thank you for sitting around and watching me set up Hugh's Flying V, Wilkinson vintage brand Flying V, and not a great fan of the shape myself, but actually it's quite a solid, stable guitar now, and you could do a lot worse than that as a kind of heavy rock style or a powerful rock guitar. So there you go. Look forward to seeing you again on another video sometime soon. As I say, Hugh's left me with a couple of really beautiful old vintage guitars, which I'm going to come through in the next few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. So keep an eye out for those, because they are they're kind of nerve-wracking for me, because they are very old, very well worn, and they've got character. And Hugh's asked for refrets, and basically the radiusing and cleaning up the fingerboard on one of them, possibly both of them, and that changes the character of the thing quite a lot. So it's going to be really interesting to see how subtly I can do that, because it's quite a big deal to refret something. It changes the way it feels altogether. Also on those two guitars, both of them are bound edges, and I've not refretted a bound edge guitar, so I'm going to have to do some practice run up to that. But like everything else, with the right equipment, with all the resources available to me on the internet, and with confidence of having taken an approach that's slow and careful from the beginning, you can do a lot more than you think you can. Especially when people put their confidence in you and their faith in you to do it. So, okay, catch you again soon. Have a good rest of your weekend. Hey, hello, different view. Ta-da, new angle. I'm not sure how it looks or anything, but I'm just doing it because I can. So welcome back to the Relove Guitars shed, and it's been a busy weekend already in certain ways. Had folks come round, a couple of sales, some customer work underway, and just move these frets out of the way. That's better. Dunk. Right. So here I have a new workbench. I'm just testing it out. Got a piece of carpety stuff or doormat stuff from Morrison's this evening. It's exactly the right width. And I've got a couple of these other carpety things to just use as soft pads. They're £2 a time at Morrison's, so you can't really fault that. And excuse me. So I've also got bought a couple of really cheap 60p flannels or something from Morrison's as well, just to get a couple of really clean cloths in the shed, because everything at the moment's got different kinds of goo on it. Even though I've washed a lot of them, unless you sort of put them in a bucket and give them a good hand washing, the polishing creams and stuff tend to stay in the cloth, so it doesn't do good for shining up bodywork. You need just a clean cloth like this. Anyway, so what I'm going to be doing is, I've done the frets on this. I put a little bit of oil on the neck and left that overnight. So what I'm going to do now is just going to restring it, put it on load, and then finish the setup. So it's kind of interesting doing it from this position. Haven't done that before. So I don't maybe look okay, may look rubbish. And yeah, it's been a really interesting weekend guitar wise. I've had Mike came over this morning, it being Saturday, and we had some good discussions about websites, and he's making one for me in exchange for doing some of his guitars. So we talked about the things that I might want the website to do. It was quite useful. I'd already done a bit of thinking about that up in London, and what I did in London was I'm just going to think, which way round would this likely to go? I didn't take a picture, so I don't really know. Typically it's that way round, with the screws facing forward, although I just saw somebody online with the screw heads facing a completely different way, but I'll leave it like that, even though it would be much easier to do it the other way. Anyway, yes, what was I talking about? Wow. Websites. Sorry, I've lost my thread. We were talking about websites, and yes, I made a presentation. I use a whiteboard desk at work in London to draw on. It's a kind of glass, opaque, white work surface, and I did a drawing on that, which was kind of like a landscape drawing showing all the the different aspects of social media and everything that I was using for Really Love Guitars, and I also then did a voiceover and kind of not animated exactly, but I did a screen flow. It's called screen grabbing thing, screen capture thing. I made a little movie of it so I could send it to Mike, who's doing the website, as a briefing document. So that was kind of useful, and I think he found it really a simple and useful way of hearing what I wanted. And then we can continue the conversation today. It was also very useful. Okay, so I'm just going to go with, I'm using a set of 10s here because I know that Hugh is a 10s string man, and interesting about the headstock on these things, I haven't really played them before, so I haven't really thought much about the design of it, but actually I think it's a pretty good design in that, well, it's reasonably good in that there's not a lot of angles going on, which is the best thing. I don't want loads of angles. It's quite nice having two different places to do things. Now this is a bigger desk as well, bigger workspace, so potentially, if I needed to, I could get the guitar full length on there, and I could move the thing where the camera is currently standing. Yeah, so talking about websites and stuff, and that's very useful. And then Jack came over, a customer, to kind of have a little bit of tweaking done on the guitar that he bought yesterday, which is really good to do. And it was a kind of sort of one of those tricky things, because he bought the guitar and I'd said that he could lower the action a little bit if he wanted to, and it was, he tried it and it didn't really have much more room in it and got some buzzing out of it, so he brought it back across before he went back up to Bristol. He'd been travelling around this area and we spent a bit of time trying to make it play the way it suited him. And I think the really critical thing for Jack was that he had an injury on his hands, and he needed a guitar that was incredibly light to play, so I'd made sure as much as possible that this guitar was. And of course one of the things we realised after talking about it for a while, it didn't really occur to me, but I put 10s on it, because when I'd set it up, Jack hadn't mentioned anything about his hands particularly, and so I put 10s on it, because I don't know if tellies are quite good with 10s on if you're a rhythm guitarist, and so it was great. I was able to do a little bit of tweaking and then to switch the strings out for 9s, which really made quite a big difference, I think. And so Jack was able to go away with a guitar really much more suited to his hands and the strength he's got in his hands to play. So that was a good outcome. And so that really those couple of things is as much as I really got done today. So this is back on the bench for the first time. Got some great feedback on YouTube from Hugh, who bought whose guitar this is, and who bought the Ace Pro SG from me the other day, and I'm so pleased he did, because it's an interesting brand, the Ace Pro. I've had two now, the SG and the Explorer style thing that's in the house still, and they're really interesting because I don't think anyone, and I certainly didn't, but I don't think people know the brand. So first of all, they're not an easy sell, and as soon as I played the SG, I was really struck by how good it was. And I've not played millions of SGs, so I don't know. I'm not an authority on it at all, but I was really blown away by how good it was. I was completely surprised for a no-name type of thing, or a very little known name. And so I had it up for sale on eBay for maybe the last month or so, without any takers, and I was kind of feeling it was a bit of a shame, because it's such a nice guitar, but obviously, you know, if it was a vintage brand, it would have probably had more bidders or inquiries or whatever. But because it's Ace Pro, nobody was biting. Anyway, nice thing was that when Hugh came around with his guitars, he was able to have a play of it. And in fact, he liked both the Explorer and the SG, both the same brand, very much. So in the end, he bought the SG, which is great because it's going to be gigged, which is, I think, what that guitar deserves, because it's such an unusual, very credible 70s feeling and sounding SG copy. So that's this weekend so far, and of course I finished the Japanese Squire yesterday, which is also great. That's really nice to see that in its box ready to go, with the tremolo set correctly as well. And actually, I'm thinking about it now, that's the first time I've set a 6 screw strap tremolo to give a certain amount of bend in both directions, so bend upwards, and that's been done courtesy of an online luthier, singer, band, guitarist, all-round talent, Italian guy by the name of Gaiazzo Frudua. And I don't know how to pronounce his name, but anyway, he's really useful, handy information on setting up tremolos on all kinds of guitars, actually, all types of tremolo. So yeah, thanks to him and his information, I set my first Stratocaster 6. God, this is really difficult. Something clogging this up, I think. The first, I set my first 6 screw. This is really interesting. This isn't going anywhere. Let's find out what. Oh, it's got some goo in the way. What on earth is all this? Come along. How weird. I might have to turn the video off a minute because this could take forever. It's very odd. I haven't really got anything I could think of to dig it out with. Oops, I'll try it with a bit of off-cut of heavy-duty string. Weird stuff. That is very, very strange. The hole is actually clogged up with something solid, like it's had super glue or something put in it. It's just weird. Very new. Oh, I'm really surprised by this. What's going on? This is supposed to be a simple affair, okay? Let's just hold this up to the light. These should just go straight through, out the back end through these ferrules, and for some reason this is clogged up. I'm going to have to do a little bit of digging with a screwdriver, a very fine screwdriver. I really wonder what's behind this. Why has that got something? It literally is like somebody's filled that hole with super glue and baking powder. That's weird. We've just taken the strings out of there yesterday. Let me try pushing a small gauge string through the hole. Wow. That will go through that way, right? But that is almost locked in place. Mystery. What's that about? We just need a clean hole. We don't need a piece of string that's getting stuck. Okay. Weird and weirder. The holes aren't exactly centered on the holes here, but do you know what? That's definitely... Why has somebody done that? They filled it with baking powder and super glue. Why? Why is that? Why is it useful to stop that string? What's it doing? Some things are a mystery, and that is one of them. Now, what I can't do is get this string through there because of that blockage. Can I get it through, or is it just bending up inside there somewhere? Oh Lord, it's hard to believe. Weird. I'm going to stop this while I go and investigate. Sorry, you're going to bore you to death while I try and solve this problem. I just don't want to come to any assumptions about this, but got to be able to get a string through here. Although there are people who say, don't stop the video at the interesting bit where something goes wrong. So I know that doesn't even begin to go all the way through. That's the first thing, so that's not going to help me. Let's have a look and use one of these little fine thingies. Now I can see, I'm just tapping where I see this material, and it really is. That's amazing. That is a hard resin, as if it's been super glued and, you know, wadded. That is so strange. Why hasn't anyone done that? It could have gone wrong. See if there's any way this goes through. I'll do it with an offcut first. Do you know, I don't remember this being so hard to push through in the first place. I've got this bit pushed through now, but it really is. God, it really is dragging its way through. I'd love to know what caused that, or why somebody's done it. Mysteries of guitars. Apparently it's brand new. Can't really get much push on this, so I don't think I'm going to be able to get it to go through the way it is. It's very, very weird. I'll try going out through the back of here. I won't be able to get too far through with this that thing. Ferrule. But it is, I'm going to have to take a picture of it because it's really surprising me. To aid my process, forgive me for putting on my Cyberman hat or whatever, but I'm definitely wanting to get a picture of this. I don't want video, I just want a photo. This looks a bit odd, but I should, if I find where they oh, there we are. Come on, you can do it. No, it's not that one. It's this one. There we are. I don't want slow-mo either. What is wrong with this thing? Lordy. Not enough hands to do this properly. That's very, very weird. So you've seen it live here in the shed. Somebody has, I don't want to even push on it, it's definitely filled this cavity, as they say. The problem for me is that the string has to lean against that. I don't know why, if there was something wrong with it before that necessitated, but it's like it doesn't even, it's almost impossible to get this string through it. God, oh, it's incredible. Weird. I've never seen anything as weird as this on a guitar bridge. I can't see with this string sticking on its way through. It's not even going through. Don't imagine how I'm going to successfully get this little scrawny E string through. What have they done? Have they made a mistake in the factory or the shop or something and just try to cobble together a fix? Why would they have done this? Why have they filled the hole? Why? There's no logic to it. There must be some. Now I've got to try and get this thing through. I can't go the other way, the way I can see an entry point. I've got to go the blind way, which is this way. And I have no idea at all whether... I've got it through. I can feel it scraping as we go. Utterly weird. Right, well, I'm just going to count my chickens and consider myself lucky that it went through. I mean, there must have been a tiny hole for it to go through, because it's obviously took a set of strings off yesterday. Yeah, weird. Right. So, just going over a bit of old ground here. Remember what we found with this was that the neck on this, the frets on this were really badly out. Surprisingly badly out. So at 95% of all the frets were uneven. Which means, you know, we were stuck with something that played, but obviously had a lot of pinging at this end. The word I'm looking for is buzzing. So straight off we've got new strings on, so let's just give them a bit of a stretch. Move you around. I'm going to need to reach for the power recharger at some point anyway. Just take some of the stretch out of these strings as a first step. Usually it takes 2 or 3 such stretchings to get into stability. And hopefully we'll get this Flying V finished tonight. I had hoped this weekend to do Adams Gibson, but I'll have to wait. Got the Affinity Strat ready to be set up and intonated as well, so that might be an easy one to do in quite a short time. Possibly got Si coming over from Plymouth tomorrow, bringing a thin line telly which has some problems. That should be a fairly short visit. And then it's band rehearsals again. It's that time of the week again. And Jay, our singer, sent some video of wasn't last week's, was it? Yeah, maybe it was last week's rehearsal, and God, it sounded awful to my ears anyway. A lot of out of timeness going on. Now I'm just you might see what I'm doing right now, because I'm just picking winding the bridge up a little bit to pick up playing action that I'm just guessing at to begin with, which isn't a problem. I just want something to just give me the strings off the deck so I can tune them. Right, what am I doing? I want